The divorce papers slid across the dining table and stopped in front of my plate. The soup between us had already gone cold. Victoria didn't touch hers. Neither did I. She folded her hands, keeping her eyes on the papers instead of me. I've already signed. The words landed softly, almost politely. That hurt more than if she had shouted. I stared at the stack for a few seconds. 7 years of marriage, reduced to a pile of clean white pages. I expected this day. Maybe that was the saddest part. Nothing inside me felt surprised. Victoria finally looked up. You don't have to make this difficult. A slow breath escaped my chest. Then, I smiled. Not because I was happy. Not because I wanted this. The smile came from somewhere deep inside me, where disappointment had lived for so long that it had become normal. She frowned. You're smiling? I picked up the pen. The first signature came easily. Then the second. The third. Every page. Every line. No questions. No argument. No desperate promise to change. Her fingers tightened around her glass. I thought you would at least. Her voice faded. I finished the last signature and pushed the papers back toward her. There. She blinked twice. That's it. What else is there? The room became strangely quiet. The clock on the wall kept ticking. Outside, rain tapped against the windows. Inside, our marriage quietly ended. Victoria searched my face as if she had expected tears, anger, maybe even begging. Instead, she found a tired man who had already cried enough when nobody was watching. She didn't understand. She thought the smile meant I had given up today. She never realized I had started giving up years ago. There was a time when this dining table was my favorite place. I used to cook every Friday. Candles, music, fresh flowers. Victoria always promised she'd be home by 7. Then the messages started. Running late. Big meeting. Another client. Don't wait for me. At first, I reheated dinner. Then I left it on the stove. Eventually, I stopped cooking altogether. The table became decoration. Just another expensive piece of furniture inside a beautiful apartment that never felt like home. Our third anniversary still lived inside my memory. I had booked a small cabin beside a lake. No phones, no work, just us. That morning she kissed my cheek while reading emails. I'm sorry. Another meeting. I'll make it up to you. The reservation became another cancellation fee on my credit card. The flowers died before she noticed them. One winter, I landed in the emergency room after a car accident. Nothing life-threatening, just broken ribs and a concussion. The nurse smiled. Your wife is coming. I nodded. Hours passed. Every time, footsteps echoed outside my room. Hope stood up before I did. She never arrived. Near midnight, my phone buzzed. Can't leave the office. Important case. Love you. I stared at those 2 words until the screen went dark. Love you. Strange how 2 simple words can feel completely empty. Grace picked me up the next morning. She never mentioned Victoria during the drive home. She didn't have to. I stopped counting the unread messages. Sometimes I would text Victoria pictures of sunsets, funny things that happened at work, photos of dinner, questions about her day. Blue check marks never appeared. Hours later, I'd receive one sentence. Busy. Talk later. Later rarely came. Eventually, I stopped sending photos. The sunsets kept happening without us. Back in the apartment, Victoria carefully stacked the signed papers into her leather folder. Businesslike, neat, controlled, exactly the way she handled everything. She finally broke the silence. You'll need to move your things. I know. I've already spoken with a lawyer about the apartment. I figured. She hesitated. That tiny pause almost sounded human. I hope someday you'll understand. I almost laughed. Instead, I reached for my water glass. I understand more than you think. She opened her mouth, closed it again. For once, she had nothing prepared. No perfect argument. No carefully organized explanation. Only distance. The same distance that had been sitting between us for years. I stood from the table. The chair scraped softly across the floor. I'm packing tonight. She nodded once. As you wish. Not stay. Not don't go. Just as you wish. Those 3 words told me everything I needed to know. The bedroom looked exactly as I remembered. Her side remained perfectly organized. Mine looked almost temporary, like I had always been a guest. I opened the closet. 1 suitcase. Then another. Clothes, books, old notebooks, a framed photo from our honeymoon. I held it for several seconds. We looked happy, or maybe we were simply better at pretending. The frame stayed behind. Some memories belong to the house they were created in. Others deserve to disappear. My hand brushed against my wedding ring. The metal felt heavier than usual. Funny, it weighed almost nothing. Yet tonight, it carried every broken promise we'd ever made. I slowly twisted it free. A pale mark circled my finger. 7 years couldn't disappear that easily. I placed the ring beside the empty jewelry box on the dresser. It made the smallest sound, a tiny piece of metal touching wood. Still, it echoed louder than every argument we had never finished. Grace opened her apartment door before I knocked twice. One look at the suitcase answered every question. "Oh, Ethan." She pulled me into a hug. I didn't realize how badly I needed one until then. Coffee steamed between us an hour later. She watched me quietly. "So, it's over. You signed." I nodded. "No fight." "No." She leaned forward. "What?" I stared into my cup. Because fighting only matters when both people are trying to win the same thing. I got tired. Grace didn't interrupt. I kept waiting for my wife to come home. Another breath escaped me. "The truth is," the words tasted bitter. I stopped feeling like her husband a long time before I became her ex-husband. Grace reached across the table and squeezed my hand. No speeches, no false hope, just warmth. Sometimes that's enough. Night had already covered the city when I returned to the apartment one last time. The suitcase waited beside the front door. Victoria stayed inside her office, working on her laptop. She didn't come out. Maybe deadlines couldn't wait. Maybe neither could pride. I picked up the suitcase, opened the front door. One last look, not at the furniture, not at the walls, at the life I had spent years trying to protect by myself. Then I walked away. The elevator doors closed. My phone vibrated before I reached the lobby. A new message from Victoria. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." The screen stayed bright in my hand. For years, I had answered every message the moment it arrived. This time, I locked the phone and slipped it into my pocket. I kept walking. The apartment was so quiet that I could hear the refrigerator humming from the bedroom. No footsteps, no laptop keyboard clicking until midnight. No phone calls about clients. Just me. I dropped my suitcase beside the wall and stood there longer than I wanted to admit. Moving into a place this small should have felt like losing something. Instead, it felt unfamiliar, like wearing shoes that finally fit after years of pretending the painful pair was normal. The kitchen held one mug, one plate, one chair. I smiled at that. Nobody would leave dinner untouched tonight, even if I ate alone. Morning arrived without an alarm. For years, I had woken early to make coffee before Victoria rushed out the door. The habit stayed. My hands reached for a second cup before my mind caught up. I stopped halfway. The empty mug stayed inside the cabinet. Old routines don't disappear overnight. They simply remind you that life has changed. Grace arrived carrying 2 paper bags. "You haven't gone grocery shopping." "I have bread." She peeked inside the refrigerator. And enough butter to survive 3 winters. A loaf of fresh bread landed on the counter. Then eggs, fruit, coffee beans. You can't rebuild your life with expired yogurt. A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. "There he is. Boo, my little brother." She handed me an apple, the one who used to laugh. I turned the fruit in my hand. I don't know if he's still here. Grace leaned against the counter. "Maybe." A small smile appeared. "But you'll never find him by staring at old memories." That afternoon, I unpacked another box. Inside sat our wedding album. The cover had collected a thin layer of dust. Funny, dust had reached it before either of us did. I opened the first page. Victoria was laughing, not the careful smile she wore at business dinners. A real one, the kind that reached her eyes. My thumb rested on the photo. What happened to us? The apartment had no answer. I closed the album, wrapped it inside an old blanket, placed it inside a storage box. Some memories deserve respect. They don't deserve control. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hello, Ethan." The familiar voice pulled me back almost 10 years. "Noah, you still recognize me." I'd recognize that terrible voice anywhere. His laugh filled the line. "Good. Because I have coffee and a business idea. The cafe hadn't changed much since college. Neither had Noah, still wearing old boots, still carrying rolled-up building sketches under one arm. He dropped them onto the table. "I've been looking for you. You found me." "Not exactly." He pointed at my face. "I found someone pretending everything is fine." The waiter placed 2 coffees between us. Noah waited until we were alone again. I heard about the divorce. News traveled fast. I didn't call because I wanted gossip. I figured. I called because I need a partner. I frowned. "For what?" He unrolled the drawings. Old theaters, historic churches, abandoned train stations, beautiful buildings waiting for someone to believe in them again. "I'm starting a restoration company." He slid one blueprint toward me. "I want you beside me." I stared at the paper. "You got the wrong person." "No." His finger tapped my old university signature printed on one corner. "I've got the architect who graduated at the top of our class." That was years ago. "So, I haven't designed anything important in a long time." "You sacrificed your career." His voice stayed calm. "That doesn't mean your talent disappeared." I looked away. I don't even know if I remember how to dream anymore. Noah leaned back. "Dreams are like old buildings." He smiled. "They don't vanish. They just wait for someone willing to restore them." The drive home felt different. Every traffic light gave me another excuse to doubt myself. Maybe Noah remembered the old Ethan, the ambitious one, the confident one. That man felt like someone else. When I reached my apartment, Grace was already waiting outside. She noticed the rolled-up blueprints. "What happened?" "Noah offered me a partnership." Her face lit up. "So what's the problem?" "I don't know if I can do it." She crossed her arms. "No." A long pause. "The problem is that you've spent so many years believing your life existed to support someone else's." The words hit harder because they were true. She stepped closer. "Build something that's yours." That night my phone lit up again. Victoria. Just her name on the screen. Nothing else. No message. No missed call. Only the contact. I stared at it for nearly a minute. 7 years. Thousands of conversations. Countless photos. One touch could bring every memory back. My thumb hovered over the screen. Delete contact? The question seemed almost cruel. Another breath. Another heartbeat. Then, yes, the screen refreshed. Her name disappeared. Only a phone number remained. Cold. Meaningless. Exactly like the distance between us. Days turned into weeks. Construction dust slowly replaced office dust. Instead of watching sunsets through apartment windows, I watched the sun rise over old brick buildings. Noah tossed me a hard hat. "Still remember how to climb scaffolding?" "I guess we're about to find out." He laughed. "That's the spirit." Every wall we repaired felt strangely personal. Broken stone, cracked windows, forgotten places. None of them beyond saving. Maybe people weren't so different. One afternoon, Noah tossed something toward me. A small silver key. I caught it. "My office, our office." He pointed toward the restored entrance. "Partner." The key rested in my palm. Small, ordinary, yet somehow heavier than my wedding ring had ever been. One opened a prison I didn't realize I lived in. The other opened a future I thought I had lost. I still wondered about Victoria sometimes. Not because I wanted her back, because healing isn't a straight road. Some mornings I reached for my phone before remembering there was nobody waiting for my good morning text. Other days passed without thinking about her at all. Those days became more common. Grace stopped by the construction site carrying lunch. She watched workers laughing while they repaired old windows. "I like this version of you. I'm covered in dust." "Exactly." She smiled. "You finally look alive." I didn't know what was happening inside Victoria's world. I only knew the pieces she had chosen to leave behind. The calendar I used to manage. The medicine I reminded her to take. The birthday gifts I quietly bought for her mother. The dinner reservations. The dry cleaning. The little things that never seemed important until nobody handled them anymore. I wasn't there to watch the empty apartment greet her after another late night. I wasn't there when success became strangely quiet. I wasn't there when another promotion failed to make her smile. Late one evening, I stood alone inside the half-restored theater. The ceiling stretched above me like a sky waiting for light. My phone stayed silent. No unread messages. No missed calls. Just peace. For the first time in years, silence no longer felt lonely. It felt honest. Miles away, Victoria unlocked her apartment after another celebration at the law firm. She dropped her bag onto the couch. The rooms answered with emptiness. Daniel had congratulated her. Flowers covered her desk. Everyone applauded when she became partner. Yet the apartment welcomed her with darkness. She reached for her phone while sorting old files. One accidental tap opened a forgotten voice message. My younger voice filled the room. Warm, hopeful. I know your trial starts early tomorrow. A quiet laugh followed. You've got this. A short pause. I'll still be waiting when you come home. The recording ended. She remained standing in the middle of the apartment. And at that moment, she finally realized I never stopped waiting. The old courthouse stood taller every week. Fresh stone replaced broken walls. Cracked windows reflected blue skies again. Every morning, I walked through those doors with a hard hat in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. Months ago, I had walked through another doorway carrying nothing but a suitcase. Now I carried purpose. Noah clapped a dusty hand against my shoulder. New client. He handed me a folder. I opened it. Another historic building. Another chance to bring something forgotten back to life. You've been smiling a lot lately. I didn't notice. That's because it's real this time. He wasn't wrong. I still had painful memories. Some nights, they returned without warning. But they no longer controlled every morning. That alone felt like progress. The office walls slowly filled with framed photographs. Before, after, ruins transformed into landmarks. One picture stopped me every time. The theater from our first project. Its lights glowed again. Families gathered outside. Children laughed near the entrance. People celebrated inside a place everyone else had given up on. I traced the frame with one finger. Funny, Noah looked over. What is? I spent years trying to save the wrong thing. He understood without needing another explanation. Grace invited me to dinner one Sunday. Nothing fancy. Homemade pasta, fresh bread, loud music playing from an old speaker. The kind of evening I had almost forgotten existed. She noticed me staring toward the window, thinking a little about work, about life. She poured another glass of lemonade. You don't have to solve everything tonight. I know. Her smile softened. You already survived the hardest part. The doorbell rang. Grace frowned. I wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door. A familiar voice drifted inside. Hi, Victoria. Every muscle in my body froze. Grace glanced back toward me. I didn't invite her. I know. Victoria stepped into the apartment slowly. Not with confidence. Not with the calm control I remembered. She looked tired. Dark circles rested beneath her eyes. She held a small paper bag in both hands as if it gave her something to do. I just wanted to talk. Grace folded her arms. About what? Victoria swallowed. About Ethan. Neither of us moved. She looked at me for a long moment. I've been calling. I changed my number. I noticed. Another pause. I found her office online. I'm busy. I can see that. Her eyes drifted toward the family photos hanging on Grace's wall. Every picture included me. Birthdays, camping trips, Christmas mornings. One empty space caught my attention. Our wedding photo. It used to hang beside the others. Now only a lighter square remained on the wall. Victoria noticed it too. Her voice almost disappeared. You took it down? Grace answered before I could. It stopped belonging there. Nobody argued. There wasn't anything left to defend. Victoria looked back at me. I never knew you were this close. Because you were never here. The words escaped quietly. They landed harder than shouting ever could. She lowered her eyes. I didn't think. I know. Dinner stayed on the table untouched. Just like so many dinners in our apartment. The difference was simple. Tonight, nobody waited for anyone. Victoria set the paper bag near me. I baked cookies. Grace almost smiled. You? A weak laugh escaped Victoria. They're probably terrible. I stared at the bag. You remembered I liked chocolate chip. I remember a lot of things. Too late. The thought stayed inside my head. It didn't need to become another wound. Victoria quietly turned toward the door. I won't bother you anymore. She stopped beside Grace. I'm sorry. Grace didn't answer immediately. She studied Victoria for several seconds. You know what hurt him most? Victoria slowly shook her head. He never complained. Grace's voice stayed gentle. He believed protecting your dreams was another way of loving you. The room became very still. Victoria covered her mouth with one hand. I thought he was happy. Grace's eyes filled with disappointment. He wanted you to be happy. Those two sentences carried 7 years inside them. Victoria walked away without another word. The untouched cookies stayed on the table. Work became even busier. Newspapers wrote about our restoration company. Local television interviewed Noah and me. Clients waited months for meetings. Every success reminded me that I had not failed. I had simply forgotten myself. One afternoon, Noah tossed a newspaper across my desk. My picture filled half the page. Historic architect brings forgotten buildings back to life. He grinned. Not bad. I laughed. My hair looks terrible. You finally sound normal. Maybe I did. Days later, my phone rang. The caller surprised me. Evelyn. Victoria's mother spoke softly. Would you meet me? Curiosity won. We chose a quiet park. She looked older than I remembered. Life had added new lines across her face. I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything. Oh, I do. She stared at the lake. When Victoria was young, I taught her that feelings made people weak. A sad smile crossed her face. I believed success could protect her from heartbreak. She closed her eyes. I never realized it would teach her to ignore the people who loved her. I remained silent. There wasn't much to add. I saw the divorce as another business decision. Her hands trembled slightly. Only after you left did I understand what she had thrown away. A long breath escaped her. I'm sorry. I don't blame you. You should. No. The answer surprised even me. I've spent enough years carrying pain. She nodded slowly. You're kinder than I deserve. Kindness wasn't weakness anymore. It was a choice. One I finally controlled. A week later, I stood inside another restoration project. Workers moved carefully across wooden beams. Fresh paint covered old walls. Someone called my name from the entrance. I turned. Victoria. She wore simple jeans instead of her usual business suit. No makeup. No expensive handbag. Only nervous hands twisting together. She looked around the building. It's beautiful. It was falling apart. You saved it. We did. She smiled faintly. You always correct that. It wasn't just me. She walked beside an old staircase. I've listened to that voice message every day. I didn't respond. I kept wondering why you never complained. The sunlight streamed through the restored windows. Dust floated quietly between us. I thought giving you space meant supporting you. She shook her head. I confused silence with happiness. I rested one hand against the wooden railing. You weren't the only one making mistakes. She looked hopeful for just a second. Then I continued. My mistake was believing love could survive without two people protecting it. Hope slowly disappeared from her face. I miss you. The words hung in the air. Honest. Painful. Real. I accepted them, but I couldn't return them. Not anymore. I hope you find peace, Victoria. Her breathing became uneven. Is there really nothing left? I searched my own heart before answering. There was kindness, respect, memories, but the place where my future once belonged to her. It was empty now. I forgave you. She waited. The second sentence mattered more. But forgiveness isn't the same as going back. She closed her eyes. A single tear escaped before she wiped it away. No dramatic scene. No desperate promises. Just the quiet sound of consequences finally arriving. One of the workers called my name from across the building. I nodded toward him. I have to get back. I walked away. Each step felt steady. Behind me, her voice barely reached my ears. Ethan. My feet stopped, just for a heartbeat. Then I kept walking. I never turned around. The applause echoed through the restored theater long before my name was announced. I stood behind the heavy stage curtain, running my thumb over the edge of my invitation. Months ago, this building had been dark. Broken seats, leaking ceilings, dust covering every corner. Tonight, every chair was filled. Children laughed in the front rows. Music floated through the room. People admired a place they once believed was beyond saving. Noah walked beside me, straightening his tie. You nervous? A little. You've spoken in front of clients. Clients don't clap before I even open my mouth. He laughed. Enjoy it. A volunteer stepped backstage. They're ready for you. I nodded. One deep breath. Then I walked into the light. The audience stood. The sound filled the theater. Not because of one building. Not because of one award. Because they believed in the work we had done. The mayor handed me a polished glass trophy for preserving our city's history and reminding us that forgotten things can live again. I accepted it with both hands. The weight surprised me. It wasn't heavy. It only carried years of sacrifice that finally meant something. I stepped toward the microphone. Bright lights hid most faces. Still, I recognized one. Victoria. She sat quietly near the back. No expensive business suit. No laptop balanced on her knees. She simply watched. My heart stayed calm. That surprised me more than seeing her there. Thank you. My voice echoed across the theater. This award belongs to every person who believed broken things deserved another chance. I glanced toward Noah. He smiled. I spent years restoring buildings. A small pause. Along the way, I realized something. The audience became still. Not everything broken should return to what it once was. Several people nodded. Sometimes rebuilding means creating something stronger than before. The applause returned. When I stepped away from the microphone, I noticed Victoria wiping a tear before anyone else could see. The ceremony ended with handshakes and photographs. People wanted pictures. Reporters wanted interviews. Older couples thanked me for saving memories they thought were gone forever. One elderly man held my shoulder. My wife and I had our first date here. His smile warmed the room. Now my granddaughter can do the same. Moments like that mattered more than trophies. Across the room, Victoria stood alone. Nobody recognized her. Nobody gathered around her. For years, she had lived inside conference rooms where everyone chased success. Tonight, she watched strangers appreciate qualities she had stopped seeing in me long ago. Patience, kindness, dedication, quiet strength. She waited until the crowd became smaller. Only then did she slowly approach. Congratulations. Thank you. Her eyes drifted toward the trophy. You deserve it. I appreciate that. She reached into her purse. A small velvet box rested in her hand. I've been carrying this for months. She opened it. My wedding ring. The gold still shined under the theater lights. I couldn't throw it away. Neither of us touched it. I thought maybe... Her voice faded. I don't know what I thought. I closed the box gently. You should keep it. It belongs to you. It belongs to the past. She lowered her head. Can we talk? I looked around the theater. Workers were already folding chairs. The audience had almost disappeared. The empty stage behind us somehow felt fitting. One conversation. Relief crossed her face. Thank you. We sat in the front row. Hundreds of empty seats stretched ahead. The stage lights dimmed until only a soft glow remained. Victoria turned the wedding ring between her fingers. I've replayed everything. So have I. I keep wondering where everything changed. I smiled sadly. It didn't happen all at once. She waited. It happened one missed dinner at a time. Her eyes closed. One canceled vacation. The ring stopped moving. One birthday. She whispered, I remember. I know. I rested my hands together. The problem wasn't forgetting once. Another slow breath. It was believing there would always be another chance. A tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away before it reached her chin. I thought I was building our future. You were building your career. I wanted both. I know. The words carried no anger anymore. Only truth. She searched my face. Why didn't you stop me? A quiet laugh escaped. I tried. When? The flowers. Confusion filled her expression. Our anniversary. Realization slowly appeared. The vacation. Another memory reached her. The hospital. Her lips parted. The dinners. Each sentence uncovered another piece she had buried beneath deadlines. I kept waiting for you to notice. Her shoulders trembled. I was blind. You were busy. No. She shook her head. I chose to stay busy. That was the first completely honest thing she had told me in a long time. I kept believing love could wait. It waited. I looked toward the stage. It just couldn't wait forever. Victoria reached inside another folder. Several papers rested there. The divorce agreement. Every page carried both our signatures. She ran her fingers across the ink. I hated these. You signed them. I thought ending our marriage would remove the pressure. A bitter smile crossed her face. Instead, it removed the person who carried everything. She folded the papers carefully. I finally understand why you smile. I remained quiet. It wasn't because you stopped loving me. She struggled to continue. You were simply too tired to keep fighting alone. My eyes stayed on the empty stage. She had finally reached the truth. Months too late. I left the law firm today. That surprised me. What about your partnership? I kept it. She took a slow breath. But Daniel isn't mentoring me anymore. I listened. I blamed work for everything. She looked toward the ceiling. The truth is, I hid inside work because I didn't know how to be vulnerable. She laughed once. Without joy. My mother spent years teaching me that success was safety. And now, I finally understand. She looked at me. Safety without love is just another empty room. The theater lights switched off one row at a time. Darkness slowly moved toward us. A worker called from the back. We're closing in 15 minutes. I nodded. We'll be right out. Victoria stood. So this is really goodbye. I think it is. She stepped closer. So many people admire you. A faint smile touched my face. I wish I had done it while I still had the chance. I didn't answer. Some regrets don't need a response. They already carry their own punishment. She opened the velvet box one last time. My wedding ring rested inside. This time I took it. Not to wear. Only to close the lid myself. I'll keep it. She nodded. Thank you. We walked toward the exit together. Not as husband and wife. Just two people carrying different versions of the same past. Outside, the evening air felt cool. The city lights reflected across the wet sidewalk. She stopped beside the entrance. Ethan, her hand slowly reached toward mine. Not to pull me back, only to feel close one more time. My fingers remained at my side. Then I gently stepped away. A tear slipped down her face. I offered the kindest truth I had left. I'm finally home. The old house stood at the end of a quiet street, surrounded by fresh flowers and new white fences. 1 year ago, people walked past it without slowing down. The roof leaked. The porch leaned to one side. Every window was broken. Now children ran across the front yard while their parents admired every restored detail. I rested one hand against the wooden front door. Another forgotten place had found its future. Maybe that was why this project mattered more than all the others. It reminded me of myself. Noah joined me on the porch with 2 cups of coffee. You've been staring at this house for 10 minutes. I was remembering what it looked like before. He handed me a cup. And now? I smiled. I like what it became. He laughed. Funny. What? You could be talking about the house. Maybe I was. Maybe I wasn't. The opening ceremony was simple. Neighbors gathered outside. Local reporters took a few pictures. A family chosen by the community would move into the house that afternoon. Watching their little girl run through every room filled me with quiet happiness. This one's mine. Her parents laughed. We'll see. She pointed toward the upstairs window. I want that bedroom. No expensive award could compete with that moment. Homes were meant to be lived in, not admired from a distance. Grace stood beside me, holding a small gift bag. I brought you something. Inside rested a wooden box. Smooth. Simple. Handmade. I found it at a craft fair. She smiled. I thought you'd know what belongs inside. I understood immediately. Thank you. She squeezed my arm. You've come a long way. I had help. You chose to keep walking. She looked toward the happy family entering the house. That's the hard part. Guests slowly spread across the yard. Laughter mixed with music. Fresh paint still carried its clean smell through the open windows. While greeting visitors, I noticed someone standing near the sidewalk. Victoria. She stayed far from the crowd. No attempt to interrupt. No expectation that I would walk over. She simply watched. The wind moved a few strands of her hair across her face. She looked peaceful, not happy, not broken, just different. She caught my eye from across the yard. A small smile appeared. Not the confident smile she once wore inside courtrooms. This one carried acceptance. I nodded once. Nothing more, nothing less. She slowly turned and walked away. No dramatic goodbye. No final speech. Some endings become stronger when words stay unspoken. I watched until she disappeared around the corner. Then I returned to the people waiting for me. Life had already moved forward. So had I. That evening, Noah helped me lock the house. Another project completed. Another chapter finished. He tossed the keys into my hand. So, he leaned against the porch railing. Any regrets? I looked back at the restored home. The windows glowed with warm light. Inside, a family laughed over their first dinner. I regret waiting so long to choose myself. He nodded. Fair enough. A grin crossed his face. What about dating again? I nearly dropped the keys. You're impossible. I'm serious. I just finished rebuilding one life. He laughed. I'll ask again next year. Later that night, I visited Grace. She placed a slice of pie in front of me before I even sat down. You look lighter. I think I am. She poured tea into 2 cups. Have you heard from Victoria? I reached for my phone. One unread message waited there. Her name no longer appeared. Only the number. Grace noticed the screen. You gonna open it? I thought about it. For a long moment. Then I locked the phone again. No. Why? Because I already know what it probably says. She waited. And because not every message needs an answer. Grace smiled. You've changed. I hope so. No. She laughed softly. I know so. The phone stayed face down on the table. The unread message remained exactly where it was. Not because I hated her. Not because I wanted revenge. Because every answer I needed had already arrived months ago. The next morning, I visited my office before sunrise. Nobody else had arrived. The quiet felt comfortable. Blueprints covered my desk. Future projects waited in neat stacks. New ideas. New dreams. A life that belonged to me. I opened the bottom drawer. Inside rested the small wooden box Grace had given me. I placed the wedding ring inside. The gold caught the morning light for one brief moment. I didn't see failure. I didn't see wasted years. I saw proof that I had loved with everything I had. There is no shame in loving honestly. The shame would have been staying where love no longer lived. I gently closed the lid. The soft click sounded final. Not painful. Peaceful. Weeks became months. Our company continued growing. Young architects joined our team. Sometimes they asked how I stayed patient with difficult projects. I usually smiled. Old buildings teach you something. They waited for more. Not everything worth saving can be repaired quickly. One of them frowned. And if it can't, I looked through the office window toward another restoration site. Then you honor what it was. A quiet breath escaped me. And keep building anyway. Every now and then I thought about Victoria. Not with anger. Not with longing. Simply with understanding. She had finally learned that success without love echoes inside empty rooms. I had learned that love without respect slowly disappears. Neither lesson came cheaply. Both changed us forever. I hope she found peace. I truly did. Some people believe closure means returning to what was lost. Mine came from accepting that some stories end exactly where they should. Late one afternoon, I drove past the apartment where we once lived. Someone else now stood on the balcony. Fresh flowers decorated the windows. Different curtains hung inside. Life had continued there, too. I smiled without stopping the car. That place no longer belonged to my memories. It belonged to someone else's beginning. As the sun started setting, I returned to the restored house one last time. The family had gone out for the evening. I checked every room, locked every window, turned off every light. The house stood quietly around me. Strong, safe, ready for many more years. I stepped onto the porch. The front door closed with a gentle sound behind me. The old brass key turned smoothly inside the lock. Sunlight slipped through the trees and settled across the small wooden box resting in my hands. I opened it. The wedding ring reflected a warm, golden light. For years, I believed losing my marriage meant losing my future. I was wrong. The day I smiled and signed those divorce papers wasn't the day my life ended. It was the first day I finally started living.